like many bands, we'd accumulated a lot of material and we were chomping at the bit to finally record it. And it was only during these sessions that we realised that there was a problem with one of my speakers, and there was a tear in it. And we'd been recording the album with a tear, so it gave us sort of a raspy sound.
Hi, JJ.
Hello there, you.
Thanks for joining us for this call.
No problem, Jack.
It's really great to catch up. We've got lots of questions coming from fans. Obviously, you haven't been out on the road this year because of COVID. So you've been recording, right? Or you have recorded beforehand. Is there something you can tell us about what we're expecting to be released?
I mean, everyone's got their story regarding 2020. I managed to get back from Auckland, New Zealand, as the band did, just 3 days before French lockdown, the first French lockdown. And we had by then recorded 90% of what we were working on of the album. So, initially it was quite a novelty to be at home for the first time in over 40 years for longer than a few weeks. And so I boned up on my classical guitar playing. And as a result, I needed some new strings. So I called Jason, and he kindly sent me quite a few sets of classical strings, nylon classical strings, which Rotosound do, and also some just renew some bass strings as well. And also some semi-acoustic strings, because I like playing on six-string acoustic as well. I write quite a lot on that. So I was all armed with my strings, and then we were still trying to complete pieces, which is awkward when you've got no one to bounce off, And you've got an image on a video image with someone, but it's not the same as being in the same room and
so that's
drinking.
your usual process is all you guys meet up in a room and you start the writing process like that.
Well, yeah, we always have a cottage together. Sometimes it's just Baz and myself, Baz the guitarist and myself, because we usually come up with the initial ideas. Then once the idea is a bit more fixed and a bit more slightly arranged, and it's got a bit more, it's a skeleton. Then we can start putting some meat on it. And then if we really want, we'd send it to the gym and it comes out with muscle. The piece, that is the song. But we didn't have that this time. So, and then in May, my oldest colleague and collaborator and friend passed away from COVID, Dave Greenfield. So that kind of arrested my development for a few weeks. I was kind of thinking, well, that's it for the Stranglers anyway, because Dave's been an integral part of our sound and of my life for nearly 45 years. So that hit me for 6. And then suddenly I got the urge to complete what we had started, because that became my only sort of focus, just to complete the job.
And David laid down his keys parts for those recordings you'd done?
Most of his key parts were down, although some of them were rough.
Okay, like demo or like just kind of first take kind of things?
Yeah, but fortunately we do a lot in the first takes because we rehearse a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
So, some people are more creative in the studio, and the studio is still a creative process, but I like our band to be well rehearsed. So by the time you're well rehearsed, you have a much better idea of the arrangement. And we try to rehearse without looking at our instruments. So you get the odd bum note, but on the other hand, you have much more freedom. It takes quite a lot of work to get to the point where it looks effortless, and it's
Yeah.
not, obviously. So,
Yeah.
so we've always insisted on rehearsing tons. And also, the more you play a piece, the more you understand it, and you understand that you can move and change pieces within a piece because it works better, psychologically, musically as well. So, so that was the thrust after Dave's passing. And I found a little studio in my village here, sort of in the halfway between the mountains and the foothills of the Alps. And so I sent that to our studio in the UK, and that's been okay. It's not the best way of doing stuff, to be honest.
No, you've got to make it happen somehow.
Well,
nowadays.
Everyone's finding different ways of doing it, and all the musicians all over the place are having to deal with it, and some are doing podcasts. I should have thought of that, but I didn't. So
you've been doing some like Ratchat videos with Baz, right? I've seen.
Yeah. Well, we've got a good fan base who people are interested in what we're trying to do and interested in what we've done. So yeah, we've been having Ratchats because Baz and myself speak almost every day on video calls. Discussing songs we're playing. I mean, it's really not the best way of doing stuff, but we still managed to at least communicate and make a bit of progress.
And obviously, that's someone you've been seeing almost every day for the last. How long's Baz been in the band now?
Well, Baz has been in the band for 21 years.
21 years now, yeah.
Yeah. So he's got the keys to the door now. So yeah, we talk every day. Sometimes we talk more than once a day. And discussing stuff, ideas, talking about, you name it. Like earlier, we were talking about Belarus.
Okay.
All the women taking the revolution to the dictator in Belarus. And,
okay, no, I haven't seen that in the news over here.
Have you seen that?
I haven't, no.
Well, it was big news about 2 months ago because he was cracking down on everyone. And he's been in power for over 20 years, and he's the last dictator in Europe. That's his kind of moniker. And he's been arresting anyone who protests, Right. So the women have started protesting and trying to pull off the masks of the secret police.
Right, okay.
So we thought that was a great idea for a song to support this movement. So we're working on a song called Sisterhood. Whether it'll appear on the final album, I don't know, but things like that inspire you to write and to try to reflect the zeitgeist, if you want.
It's got to be hard for you to get inspiration when you're not out and about as well. So
what do? You're subjected to all the news, and the news pulls you in different directions because there's fake news, and it's also different platforms have their interests, so they give the news with their slant.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were in America and you'd been listening to Fox News, you would have thought until about a month ago that Trump was the greatest thing that ever happened. So, you have to take, and even in the UK, especially in the UK, it's very polarized. You have the Telegraph or the Mail advocating, supporting one side, and then you have the Mirror supporting another side. So you have to, the news is always slightly bent in favor of the powers that be, the different interest groups. So you have to filter that through. I mean, that's all we can do at the moment because we're subjected to news from all over the place. I nearly said a bad word there.
Is that, do you think that's changed since when you were, the Stranglers first started, you were writing songs then with the kind of polarization, or do you feel that it's always been there, it's always been something you've written about?
Well, in the early days, I suppose we didn't have so many filters, but so the news that the information that you're acting on or writing on might be slightly biased. I'm kind of a bit more aware of that now, but I mean, we've always we haven't been great at love songs. Stranglers. We've been okay with hate songs, and mainly journalistic stuff. Sort of observing the world through our prism. And of course, we've got every right to do so, because everyone has an opinion, and as some famous news editor said, opinions are free, the truth costs a bit more.
Right. Okay.
But I think it's our duty as artists to entertain, inform, or certainly through our prism again, and reflect reflect the world that we live in. So whether it's about personal things, my wife dumping me, for example, or me finding happiness with someone else, or anything, that artists should be able to write about anything uncensored.
Yeah, and I've watched a couple of interviews of you where you've kind of, or the band where you've kind of perhaps not embraced the label of punk that some people might have given the band. But do you think that that's perhaps come from that commentary on, political commentary, social commentary of stuff at the time, rather than the sound of the music?
I think a lot of our generation of bands were socially conscious. But they might have even been socially conscious sniffing glue. However, we and I suspect people are still socially conscious, and it's reflected in their output, in their music, or whatever art they're involved in. I think the punk thing. I did identify with the punk thing. I don't think the other members of the band did 100%. I did for a short while, but then I found it a bit suffocating, creatively suffocating, because it was such a broad church. Mm-hmm. All the bands came out and were called punk at one point. Then suddenly some were called new wave, and then post-punk and everything. I think it became restrictive creatively. And we never, as a band, wanted to be restricted, because there's so many ways. I mean, I love jazz, I love classical, I love folk, I love rock, and all kinds of music. So why should you be? People were saying, "Well, you can't be punk because you've got a keyboard." Well, there you go. There's one more restriction, isn't there? That's bullshit.
Yeah, being put in a box.
Well, no artist worth their salt wants to be put in a box. They want to be able to be free to express themselves in whatever way they want, And you take influences from everywhere, not just, a narrow band.
Yeah, you can definitely hear that in the Stranglers' creative output over the years.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. How it's changed and the sound and everything. You touched on a bit of your the music you listen to. What were your influences when you first started playing music, picking up the bass guitar, etc.?
Loads. You've got to bear in mind the age at which I picked up bass guitar, and we started the Stranglers. I'd lived through as a young teenager the blues boom, the British blues boom, and I've said this on many occasions. I was absolutely privileged to see bands like Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac in the back of a pub before their first ever album, Free, when they were called Black Cat Bones, I think, and loads of bands, John Mayall's blues bands, the Blues Breakers. They were kind of a university for all the guitarists, Eric Clapton, Peter Green, what's his name, Mick Taylor. They all came through it, and Mick Fleetwood. All these bands. They Ainsley Dunbar. All these musicians played in the University of Blues, if you want to get. And so I grew up there, and I was sometimes smuggled into the pub by older boys who knew I loved all this stuff. And I even saw the Stones free at Hyde Park just after.
Really? That concert that was filmed. There's the film of. Oh,
you hear it back. It sounds shit, but it was a great event. I think I was 16. I went up to London from just outside Guildford on my scooter and a girlfriend, Jenny, wherever she is. I wonder what happened to her. Anyway, so
what was that? A Vespa or a Lambretta?
It was a Lambretta Li 150.
Okay.
And after that, when I could afford it, I bought my first motorcycle. And I've been
cool.
biker ever since.
What colour was the Lambretta?
Colour. I took the side panels off because I think they were cream or something. Then I put a backrest on, and I had my parka with the furry collar, and I did a 180-degree turn when I got my motorcycle. It was leather jacket, boots, and olive oil in my hair.
Excellent. That was a bit more streamlined. Getting the motorbike, go a bit faster, I guess. Yeah,
but I did have a great time with my Lambretta Li 150.
Yeah, a bit nicer for the passenger, maybe on the back. I don't know.
Well, I think I only managed to convince one passenger to sit on the back there. Jenny.
Pass that on. I wanted to say as well, just when you were mentioning the kind of blues scene, because I guess you're around there similar time to some of my family. I've got a lot of family in South London, and I know they were going to the same kind of gigs as you. So there's the odd chance that they were going to the same ones.
Well, it's great. When you think about it, that period produced some of the most famous, greatest guitarists, and they were all British.
Yeah.
Eric Clapton, Peter Green, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
3 of which were in the same band at one point.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, like that's definitely one of the best exports from the UK, and one that I feel like probably doesn't get as much backing as it should do.
It's getting sabotaged. That's what's happening. It's getting sabotaged with this Brexit thing, that musicians have suddenly had their lifelines and their livings cut and pulled away from them because the deal didn't include artists. So now they have to get visas and all this bullshit. I think the government missed the trick there. I really get angry about this. The government missed a trick because, music is one of our greatest exporters and greatest earners, and it keeps a lot of people working all over the world from the UK. And they fucking sabotaged it or didn't take it into consideration,
And I'd like to ask you about when you first started using Rotosound strings or working with the company. Was that from very early on, or?
Yeah, very early on. But I wasn't sure. I wasn't aware of the brand at the time. But and I think I wasn't really too technical. I just didn't know the difference between a round wound and a flat wound, except the round wound suited my sound better at the time. So my crew would do it. I only became aware of the brand when Jason's dad died.
Okay.
I think he founded the company.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what happened, but at some point, Rotosound were providing me with strings. And I think I wasn't even paying for them. We were paying bare minimum.
Right, okay.
And then I think Jason's dad died, and they weren't handing out free strings, sponsoring anyone for a while.
Yeah, okay. I think there were some difficulties with the company then for, financial.
And I mean, you probably know the history of the company better than me. I mean, you've been briefed. But I insisted on still buying them.
Okay.
If we couldn't get them for a knockdown price or free, I insisted on our crew, or those concerned, that I still wanted to use these strings, but you have to pay for them. So fucking what, you know? But I believe that a lot of the old sluts who are musicians occasionally, they just went to other companies getting their free strings.
Right.
So when Jason started taking control of the company properly, he was grateful that I'd stuck by them.
Yeah.
Which I thought would have been a normal thing, you know. But anyway, so that the relationship developed from there. He was
I know
grateful.
Jason's a big fan as well of the Stranglers, so I'm sure that would have caused him to get in contact as well.
Well, anyway, it's been a fruitful relationship, and of course, all over the world, I'm really grateful for the support from Rotosound, and they've been probably my most consistent. Rotosound and the amps used to be Trace Elliott. I used to buy those, but Ashdown have helped me, and so I'm really grateful. And I don't use American guitars anymore. I used to use Fender Precisions, but they weren't very helpful. And I really felt that I was quite high profile with the bass.
You're known for using those Fenders Precisions, yeah. So
I looked around at English guitar makers, luthiers, and I found one who would make me a Fender Precision, but an improvement on, Fender P Plus.
Yeah.
And I found one, and we've slowly over the years we've created lots of prototypes, and then developed those. And so we've moved. We still got the more or less the Fender P shape, but everything else is far beyond that.
And what luthier is that? What's the name?
That's John Shuker in Derbyshire. John Shuker guitars. Those Rotosound and the Ashdowns are a marriage made in heaven for me.
Yeah, you've got a very distinct sound. Jason and I were chatting yesterday about that's a great example of the Rotosound string sound. Is your bass, Well,
the round one, certainly.
Yeah.
I think it's not one element; it's all three elements put together and create that sound. But sometimes it's a bit too harsh for the songs I'm working on. So sometimes I soften my playing. It's four things, actually. It's the pick, the strings, Rotosound strings, the Shuker guitar, and the Ashdown amps. All those four elements combine to make my sound. However, sometimes the song doesn't require such hardness. So I change my playing. I use fingers and soften the sound.
Yeah, you get a huge variety of sounds just from where you're picking and.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For sure.
We had a question on social media about your tone. Well, we had a few questions, but I'm going to pick this one out. This one's from Adam Priest on Facebook. He says, I remember reading that the late Martin Rushent was a big fan of your famous growly tone. How much of that was emulating a live sound, and was it pushed any more by him as a producer?
Well, Martin was our first producer for the first three albums. So we didn't really, the first album, we really didn't know quite what was happening. We just played what we knew, and it was recorded. However, at some point during, the first two albums, Rattus Norvegicus and No More Heroes, were more or less done, 90% was done in the same session. Okay. Because we had, like many bands, we'd accumulated a lot of material and we were chomping at the bit to finally record it. And it was only during these sessions that we realized that there was a problem with one of my speakers, and there was a tear in it. And we've been recording the album with a tear. So it gave us sort of a raspy sound. And it was only near the end of the sessions that we realized there was a tear in it, which was contributing to this rasp. So we tried replicating it, and,
And did it work replicating it, or did you end up using
Ish, yeah. Well, it gave us a template for attempting a sound. So I kind of kept it, sort of.
Okay. And what about nowadays, like live? Do you use a distortion pedal or anything like that gives you that? Or
no need. It's just the way I play.
yeah, okay.
I mean, it's a combination of all the four things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's jump into another question that we got sent through. This one is from Retro Lover Boy with 3 Ys on Instagram. He says, "Hello, really enjoyed the band. This is a dumb question, but what's the best part of playing in the band throughout the years?"
Retro Lover Boy. Are you coming on to me? What's the best part of being in the Stranglers? This could be a deep answer or a superficial answer. I mean, the best part of the Stranglers is knowing that you're on a mission and everyone's covering your back.
Okay.
And despite the changes in personnel over the years, we've always kept a really close. I mean, it's not just a job, and we've become such good friends. And the loss of Dave just, screwed me over for a bit. And I found myself tearful only a couple of weeks ago talking about it. Because when you've been together and it's worked as a combo, as a friendship for so many years, with your ups and downs, you derive. It's like a family. It's like a family, but a family that you can choose to be with. Some families you can't choose your families, can you? So that's been also to prove a lot of people wrong.
Okay.
Because in the early days we were written off because we weren't the fashionable Sex Pistols or the Clash. So we had a lot of punch-ups, and that was I used to enjoy that quite a lot.
Yeah.
A sense of mission.
I've read a few things, and I didn't know how much of that was true about some punch-ups and etc.
A lot of punch-ups. In 1976, it was almost a punch-up every night.
Okay. With some
and
bands,
I kind of think it was a gunslinger syndrome. You'd go into a town and they'd heard about these bands from London or wherever, or pretending to be punks, or described as punks by the press and the media, hysterical media. So they were trying to check you out, and I wasn't going to back down. We weren't going to back down. So we got we became veterans of that, because in the early days in the pubs, people would just throw glasses at you. Really? And we didn't have the Blues Brothers chicken mesh. Protect.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realise things would get that kind of level.
Well, also to the extent that one day after a gig at Canterbury Odeon in '77, a lot of our fans were attacked by a mob of metal fans in Canterbury High Street. And we heard about it while we were still inside the hall, backstage. And a bunch of us came out with microphone stands and whatever, and attacked these people attacking our fans. And I was on top of this guy in the middle of the high street. This is like at 11 o'clock at night, on top of this guy, battering the hell out of him. And suddenly there was commotion behind me. And one of my mates from Finchley had stopped this guy stabbing me in the back.
Oh my God.
It just got hold of it. It did escalate. As young men, we found it very exciting, but I'm glad that's not really the case anymore.
Yeah, I know you guys have got loyal fans, but kind of preventing someone stabbing you in the back is next level.
I think you get the fans that you deserve, I think, and fans get the bands that they deserve. It's a symbiotic relationship,
I'll give you my last question that I've got lined up from social media. So this is by, which one we're going to go for? Yeah, okay. Ryan Howe. I think this one's on Instagram, maybe Twitter. He asks, out of all your bass lines, what's the most demanding one for you to play?
Well, demanding just from memory-wise, probably Genetics from the Raven album. But, that's playable. What I find, Baroque Bordello is from the Raven is quite a complex piece, but doable. To get my fingers in the right places, probably 6/8 time on Goodbye Toulouse from Ratchat Norvegicus. I think.
But I guess they've been well drilled into your system from, you guys tour a lot. Obviously up until last year, you're one of the top touring bands, I guess, from the UK.
Well, that's what we do. We love playing. It's just every night when we've got thousands of people in front of us, you feel a form of communion, and it's a moment where we can embrace things that we all have in common, and a lot of people have got years in common. We've got a history together.
Okay, I'm going to draw it to a close now. Thanks very much, JJ, for chatting. It's been it's really nice. Thanks for bearing with us for a few days worth of interviews to get this done. But,
hey, no problem. I'm really grateful for the support. A renewed big hug to Kath and Jason and all the team. Yeah,
thanks. I will do. I'll pass that on. All right, thanks, mate. JJ. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot for this. Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.